Hi, welcome back to the Mortuary Channel. My name is Frank Rivero. I'm with Pacific Interment Service. We have been exploring the possibility of putting in a alkaline hydrolysis equipment in this crematory to start switching away from flame cremation to water cremation. This video is more than anything to track my thought process and experience in trying to make the best purchase that I can for the best and most efficient equipment. So in the beginning of the process, I came to realize that there's really only two options currently available for this equipment. I mean, there's another company, but it's really, they haven't even designed a prototype yet. So the first company is called Resomation. That is made in, that equipment's made in England. And the other company is a company by the name of Resomation. And those are made in Indiana. And I've done a lot of soul searching because either way, I'm looking at an enormous expenditure. It's an investment of anywhere from, $1 million plus to, on the Resomation side to, $500-600 maybe for the other machine when all is said and done, with some modifications that I'm looking at. So yesterday I flew to Kent, Washington, right outside SeaTech, right outside Seattle, and I visited with a gentleman, Steve. You'll see him in the video that's coming up. And I flew there with David, and David is the owner and founder of an operation down in Escondido. It's called White Rose, and they are in fact the first alkaline hydrolysis place that's been licensed in the state of California. Both of them really good guys, smart entrepreneurs. Anyway, I started with David because I've had a lot of kind of hype about these Resomation machines, so I wanted to take a look for myself. The video that follows is going to be the interview and a pretty in-depth review of that particular piece of equipment. Something much different than the kind of the fluff pieces that you see about alkaline hydraulics. It's more the nuts and bolts, which is exactly what I'm into, to see how the equipment works, what are the upside, what's downside, and what's the best bang for the buck. The next video after this one, and I'm hoping to be there next week in Escondido, will be with David, the proprietor of White Rose. And by the way, I'm going to pin some links in the description to both of these operations. The First Call Plus in Seattle, he's strictly services funeral homes. He's not a front end mortician, so he's high volume, does removals for morticians, has several flame retorts on the premise. Quite an impressive operation, actually. They do a high volume business. On the other hand, David is strictly Aqua Cremation or alkaline hydrolysis, or whatever term you want to use for it. And he's a reasonably new, he has a reasonably new business. He's doing well. I will be, with God's will, up here installing one of these machines. I'm not going to mention just yet which way I'm leaning or the reasons for that. So this was going to be a three-part series. The first part is going to be the Resomation machine up in Kent, Washington. This was filmed yesterday. And when you get to the third part, those of you that either really interested in seeing what these machines are and what they do and how they do it, would have an interest. Anybody that is looking to start a business with aqua cremation or alkaline hydrolysis, you definitely are going to save a lot of legwork by watching these videos. And anybody else who just has curiosity about what it does, how it works, and what the future of it is. And I actually think my mind has changed, because initially I thought it was kind of gimmicky and would never replace flame cremation. I believe now that it's the way things are going, both politically and just the consciousness of the environment and things like that, that there'll be no option but this, probably anywhere from 5 to 20 years from now. So we're going to jump on it right now. Stay tuned, watch the video, and put your comments down there, and I'll try to answer any questions that you have. Thanks. See you soon.
Okay, it's February 28th, and we're in Seattle, Washington, at the facility of Steve. Can you introduce?
First Call Plus.
First Call Plus. This is Steve from First Call Plus, the guy who really knows his way around these machines. Hang on, let me try to adjust this just a little bit, Steve, and then we'll get to work here. There we go. So go ahead and start up, Steve. Give us a nickel tour of your facility here.
All right, so this is a Resomator made by LBDC. We installed it we became operational October 14th of 2020 during COVID, so that was fun. We did 300 cases our first year, 500 cases the second year. As we slide this door out, nothing tilts with the machine. Everything's done in place. We'll take this tray completely out. We'll put down a biodegradable sheet underneath that both acts as kind of a decency cloth and also protects from any fluids that might be underneath. You can look on in there. The head of the machine will go in facing there to be captured inside of this basket. After the process is complete, you can see the bone structure almost in place entirely, starting at the feet, working through the long bones and the hips, through the vertebrae, ribs, and then finally the skull at the top. We'll collect all of those bones and then put them into a dryer.
Steve, can you show them how this grate comes up, how it separates there, and what you would do? So that whole piece there comes out of the machine.
Yeah, this is not connected to the machine
right,
at all.
That's what I wanted them to see.
It's not connected. So you can take it out, you could dress it up and do a service around it and have the person all ready to go on it, so you're not transferring them later. Everybody goes into the machine with no clothing, so the biodegradable sheet actually acts really well to both give the person some decency, so they're not kind of exposed when going into the machine as well.
Fair enough.
You can see actually when the parts come out, they're actually suitable for maybe transplant into the future. You can see that this would be a hip. During the cremation process, most of this would be destroyed.
It would be destroyed. You get none of it back.
Like so I think there's an avenue in the future to actually use these for other donations. So,
and then can you explain how the...
Yeah, so what we're always trying to ensure is that the bones stay separated, right? That's the idea. This process actually captures about 25% more bones than cremation. You have to remember how violent it is inside of a retort. 120 miles per hour in there. You do have some substantial bone loss in there. We found that the remains, actually we're forcing to put into another urn because we have so many left over. So, and what this really does here is gives us the separation so that we can we can retain as much of those bones as possible. So we have this one divider, and then this does flex a little bit when you get the seams on there, and there's a theoretical chance for bones to go underneath. So we have another little catch tray that we have underneath,
Right.
as another chance to kind of retrieve the bones.
Can you talk about the heat exchanger and how that works, please?
Yeah, so you see on the outside, this would be the heat exchanger. So we generate our steam that actually runs into the back and then runs through these pipes and then turns back into steam, so it's constantly flowing through to get the temperature of the unit up to 302 degrees. The flow inside of the machine is fairly minimal. You can see the pump heads is one bar that runs through, and you can see the ejection ports, a couple on the top, but you can see like having to get through all of these grates, like it really knocks down the pressure, so we're not actually blasting fluid through. You can see these spray heads on top over here come out at about a 65 or 75 degree angle, mainly just used during the rinse process to really just keep everything organized and off this tray.
Right. All right, let's go around the back of this machine, because this is a real beast, to say the least. And this is the model number of the machine. It's an S750 from Resomation, and there's your temperature gauge, pressure gauge, and we're going at 360 there. This door is something to behold too. This is, believe it or not, a door off of a submarine. Let's see if we can give it a back.
You can kind of see the line on the side.
Let's see if we can. There we go. Get a little bit view out. That's the front of the machine. And yeah. It kind of actually reminds me of a vault door.
Oh, for sure.
For a bank.
It's cool. You can hear it when you hit the button. You can hear them jet out, and they go kind of lock into place.
Yeah, so it does. These are the latches right here, correct?
Yep.
And these are just going to open up. Are they air controlled also?
Yep.
They are. So most of this machine is controlled by valves, and the valves are triggered by air. So they're much like, big trucks that use air brakes. This has a compressor, and they're this valving will allow different functions to happen. And you can see all that blue tubing, that's all air hosing right there. Steve, you want to take over here since you know this thing way better than I do?
No problem. So you'll see the fluids mainly. You can see, maybe you can stand on the back side.
Yeah.
It'll be a little bit easier. You can see how the fluids kind of pass through in and out of everything. So you have different sensor levels, so you can see the different levels of the water. You can see that's the steam in and the condensate out. And then you can see how the fluid can kind of get moved in from different areas, as depending on what part of the cycle it is. There's one pump for this machine located down on the side, and then all these valves will open and close depending on what part of the case is doing what.
So all these valves are sharing that one pump.
Correct.
To move the fluid itself around. So the fresh water, the rinse water, and the effluents that are discharged to the machine
Correct.
all get discharged by that one pump. And let me just step around here and show that pump again. So this is kind of the heart of this thing, or the heart, I should say, of this thing, which is this pump. And you have basically dryers up here. Is that correct, Steve? Is that a dryer, like an air dryer?
It's just not really a dryer, but just separates any residual moisture that might be.
So a water separator for the air, so you're not getting air or water in the air.
Right. Yep.
And there's kind of an overall view of the tank from behind. By the way, this is David. David, say hello. David's the owner of White Rose. They're a hydrolysis facility down in Escondido, California. Yes. We'll get you David's phone number here, or I'll pin it at the end. And this is the control panel, correct? And this is going to control all the other portions of this that we're going to be looking at?
Correct. So we have, pretty complete access. We can see the tanks on the other side. We can see the machine itself. So we can tap on one of these and we can see how much fluid that we would have. We could actually step between the different units and it shows exactly temperature in gallons and everything that would be in each one of these tanks. We can actually also go into the resomator itself. So this gives you a good layout. It tells you everything that's either open or closed. So you can see that we have the test valve out, so atmospherically we're open, and then the vessel is drained. So if I blast water inside, it would just go off the drain off the back side there.
Fair enough. And this will control the entire machine from this station right here.
Yes, and I have the same functionality on my desktop version and on my app on my phone as well. Yeah. And they have remote access to be able to control this back in England as well. So they can log into it. If I get an error message too, they get the same notification set up as I do if there's an error. So they can be in it before I can be in it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we have also the ability to go into manual mode on this side, so I can go in and manually open and close pumps as needed if I want to stop or pause or anything like that. So we can run it as automated or as manual.
But you prefer to be automated so you don't have somebody having to stand in front of it like Absolutely. You would a retort,
Absolutely.
Where you're constantly checking the temperatures and the state of cremation.
If I had a feeling that we're putting in a decene that needs additional KOH, say if we had a case that was embalmed.
Did you just say what KOH is?
Just the alkaline.
Alkaline.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we feel that we have a case that was hit particularly hard with additional embalming chemical that would be in and above what would be standard in this industry, we can go in there and manually pump in some additional alkali or KOH to help with the tissue.
Very good. All right, let's take a second. We're going to walk over to the next room and you're going to check out the tanking system. Excuse the blurriness. Maybe I can edit that out or maybe not. I don't know. Hold on a second.
So if you walk down the sides here, you can see the indication plates of what each tank is. After the cycle is done with the person, what's left over is you have the bone material and you have what's called effluent that's left over. The effluent is piped over to this treatment tank where it can be neutralized to meet city or state guidelines and also atmospherically cool down, so if it would be safe to go to drain or container or whatever it would be. Being that the system comes out at about a 12.3 on the pH level, most municipalities or districts are going to want it under 10 or some other number. So we store a little bit of acid to help neutralize that. It's important to note that we're never using that acid to actually break a person down, only to treat the effluent that's left.
Now, the neutralizing tank, does this move from here to here, or does this inject from here in?
Here.
Got it.
From here to here, you can see the tube over the top, just going from one through the pump right into the other.
Okay, so the neutralizing tank is just injecting acid into the treatment tank.
Correct.
And that's for the wastewater. That's not any part of the process.
No part of the process
other
than just for wastewater.
Does your rinse cycle come through here too? Or is it diverted just to the drain?
Rinse cycle, well, the secondary cycle that comes through is also dumping. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So when we do a secondary rinse that just has about a gallon of KOH and comes up to 265, yes, anything that touched bone material or anything like that, it's always going to end up in this. Yes.
How many gallons are we talking about here in the treatment tank? Do you know?
I
Just
think
close.
that this would be about 220 gallon tank.
220. Okay.
So if this is 200, maybe 250, something like that.
So the reclamation tank is what?
This is.
No, this one.
I don't know about the same. That's a good question. Actually, I don't pay attention to either of these two.
What does the reclamation tank do?
So this is when we introduce water to cool, we will actually then store that water and use it for the next process. So it's coming if we're cooling with 50 degrees city water, it's coming out of that process at 120 degrees. We'll then use that and then go right into the machine to start the next case with. So our starting temperature is about 120.
But there's no commingling of the water with the previous decedent, just to make clear that.
Nope.
Okay.
The cooling process water is separated. Is separated entirely. So, but when we inject back in, then it's injected straight into the tank.
Beautiful.
And then the Alkaline, KOH, 45% wet.
And this is the actual chemical that does the dissolving of the remains.
On a typical case, we'll inject 80 gallons of water for the cycle. 5% of that solution will be KOH. So in an 80-gallon scenario, we would be injecting 4 gallons of KOH for that process.
And this is delivered to you by a chemical company, correct? And you pump it into this tank.
Yep.
And then once it's in the tank, that you fill the tank, then it's automatically supplied by way of the computer system to the
based off
Resomation.
the weight, if they've been autopsied, if they've been embalmed, and the sex of the individual, will know how much fluid to inject. So we're not short or more. We're exactly where we need to be.
Okay.
Now the control panel on the back, we can control the side. We can control both sides of the case on this. On the same one, so just a little bit different display, but we can go in there.
But you can go into this one and do the same thing you did on the machine itself, correct?
A little bit more limited, but yes, we do have the same information there. So I can go into I can log in, and then I would have the same controls over. I would have the same controls over the pumps and everything that I would on the other side.
And then this is essentially, this large tub here is just a catch
containment.
basin.
Just if we have
a spill.
if we have a massive spill, the containment tank would be in there.
All right, so you're surrounded with a containment tank. Here, let me see if I can get a better angle so I can. Yeah, there you go. And you can see it, and then go along the edge here. That's probably even a better angle. But okay, so what do we have going on in here?
Yep. So these are the individual pumps controlling each one. So pump for the Alkaline, pump for the energy reclamation. If we take in too much water and the tank is already full, since there's no commingling, there's just an overflow valve that just goes straight to the tank.
Now again, we're running. These are run by or controlled by air, so they're air valves, and the pumps are down. Let me see if I can get a close up right there. But here we have 2 pumps, so they're each one of these have their own pump. Actually, there's a third one over there. So yeah. So does that mean that each one of these tanks has their own pumping system, and that's to keep everything separate?
Yep.
So you're not commingling the
You wouldn't want to
water.
mix. You wouldn't want to theoretically mix any of your acid solution with your alkali. So
Right.
On separate dedicated lines.
or the water that's being treated.
Correct. Yep.
So there's this obviously goes to this tank. you can see the amount of piping that's involved in installing one of these units, and I must say you guys did a fantastic job of doing so. It looks beautiful. All right, and then last but not least, we are going to go over and see so first of all, explain why this room is contained.
Okay.
So it's a separate room here. Explain why that is.
Yeah, so this is a steam generator, also a boiler. In so doing so, you have to have it in a boiler room. So a 2-hour fire-coated wall with dampeners for fresh air and exhaust, and fire door. We have an emergency shutoff on the outside of the door. Floor drain in the back. Floor drain underneath you there. So what happens here is from about a 5-minute start, we're going to be producing steam, so whatever temperature. You can see inside of the unit right now it's about 92 degrees. Inside the steam line it's about 50 degrees, so pretty cool. 5 minutes producing steam. It's a closed loop system, so the water usage is very minimal. It does purge cycles, and then we'll introduce a little bit of new water at that point where it's...
Can you explain what a closed loop system is, just for somebody who wouldn't?
So essentially it's just super efficient. So, on a closed loop system, you're actually capturing the condensate that returns, turning it back into steam, and then re-inviting it back into the system. So when the condensate comes back in, it might be 260 degrees, so it's very efficient to get that back up to the 302, which is our set point, to send back out toward the machine.
So there's very little energy loss.
Yeah, the amount of therms that we use per case are just, if we're doing 35 cases per month, 40 cases per month, I think my average monthly bill is, I think it's $280 or $300 for natural gas. I have a separate meter just on that. So
and a therm is just a measurement of energy.
Yeah.
So that's how you would, if you look at your electricity bill, or actually your gas bill more likely, you would see that they just rate you for how many therms you have used. But one of the reasons for this equipment is because it's way friendlier ecologically than a traditional flame retort. So that's kind of the impetus for all of us here to look into this equipment. I'm going to take you around the side here. You said that's it holds about 10 gallons, and and what is it doing there? Is it preheating?
Just storing. It's storing water. It's treated. It's softened, and it's ready to inject.
So you have a water softener down here, and the reason for the water softener is?
It just came with the equipment.
Just came with the equipment?
It wouldn't be a requirement for our water.
Okay. So your water is reasonably soft, or soft enough to operate here. And again, is that temperature or pressure down there? That's temp, right? That the gauge here?
That's pressure.
That's still pressure?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is very, very sophisticated equipment. But so your overall impressions on these units, why don't you give us, for anybody who may think of someday of putting one in, for the young entrepreneurs out there, what do you think?
Oh gosh, there's a million different ways that I could pitch this to us. And I guess for me, having 3 young kids was kind of the guiding factor in that, and even even having a couple conversations with people that have come in. When I was first legalizing this, I had the Catholic Church take a big step against this, and we ended up getting it passed anyways. But then I had a priest come on board, or I had a priest come in because he wanted to familiarize with this process, and he said something to me that will always stay with me. He said, "You know, I'm not speaking for the Catholic Church, but this just seems right to me that we come into this world surrounded by water in our mother's wombs. When I baptize people, I baptize them in water, not fire," as he's pointing to 1 degree towards. And now that we have a solution to be able to leave this world surrounded by water, it just seems very complete to him.
That's a very profound.
That really has stuck with me, and I tell anybody that I can that story. I had another little old lady that has really stuck with me. You know, she came in, little tiny thing, you know, her hair had all fallen out. You know, she had medical devices all over herself, from ports to PICC lines and colostomy bags and, you know, everything. And knowing that this process, we have to remove all of that, you know, it just seemed that she would have liked to leave not being attached to all this equipment, you know, and this process requires all of that stuff to come off before you put it in. So things like pacemakers, infusion pumps, everything like that, none of those need to be cut or removed from the body, so we're not making any unnecessary incisions anymore. I could really go on and on for a long time, but...
And from a logistical perspective, you have had pretty good luck with this equipment. You haven't had a lot of breakdowns, and the company's been responsible and reliable for any type of warranty.
Is impeccable, absolutely.
Okay.
Their access to communications, whether it be in the middle of the night with England or during the day with people in the U.S., I have resources at my disposal.
That's terrific to know, because that's a big deal when you're operating equipment like this. If you break down and you start getting backed up, it's not anything you want to have to deal with. Terrific. You've been such a wonderful host and person to allow me in here to take a look around to make my own decisions on this. It's really been an eye opener, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see here.